Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. I am back again with a solo episode. For the month of April, I've been doing something a little bit different and pausing and creating solo episodes to reflect on some of the great takeaways that our guests have brought to the show. It's so easy to just continue to create content, bring new guests on, have new conversations, but there is so much wisdom dropped throughout each of those guest episodes that sometimes we get in consumption mode with podcasts and videos, and we don't note the gold nuggets that these guests share with us. So I've done 2 episodes already, transition planning, wrap up, and this is going to be the 3rd one. So the first 2, the first one talks about the top 4 or 5 stumbling blocks that founders faced when it comes to transition planning. So if you're a young farmer in the audience, or if you're a farm founder, there's probably about 5 things that you are concerned about. It might be income for retirement, what you're going to do, fair and equal. There's a list of 5 things I go over in that episode that are the top 5 stumbling blocks to transition planning for farm founders. So I'll put a note to that in this show episode as well. So if you missed that episode, you can go check it out. And then the second episode I did is the top 10 transition planning mistakes that farm founders, families make, pardon me. And I go through and I list some of the thoughts and ideas that experts on our show share all the time. Why don't farm founders plan? What are some of the mistakes they make? So that was really valuable and well received as well. Today, we're going to talk to something a little bit close, near, and dear to my heart and many of you in the audience. If you're a young farmer, this one is specifically for you. If you're a farm founder, tune in because it's great to hear what the younger generation is thinking, what they're concerned about, what they're worried about. And really, that is the title of this episode. The concerns of young farmers about the future of farming. And not only that, more personal, their future of farming, transition planning. So if you look at the world that we're in today, as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, transition planning always gets put off for a number of reasons, like fear, for lack of knowledge, too busy. But at the root of it, it's generally fear. We don't want to cause conflict, and really, we don't want to tear families apart. Right? So you don't know what to do as a farm founder. You don't know how to take care of fair and equal. It's like, wait a minute, let's just not do anything. That's easier, right? So now, though, you look at everything going on in the agriculture industry and the tariffs, and wow, I could feel farm families, farm founders pushing off transition even more. And younger farmers going, oh my God, why do I even want to be in this industry? Oh my goodness, right? Like, this is crazy. I've had some conversations with young and keen farmers, and I remember being there. And actually, when we were looking at starting to come back to the farm, we were working, we did our thing, we were getting excited, we wanted to buy some cows, we wanted to start farming. Guess what happened? BSC hit, and there went Tracy and Anthony's farming dreams flushed down the toilet. For a few years anyways, it took quite some time for that to be solved, but quite some time for the markets to open up, for prices to even out, and for us to feel comfortable to get into it. So I could just imagine, are you a young farmer? Are you sitting there going, all I want to do is farm. I love this. I grew up on the farm. I want to continue on. But you're looking and you're probably going through and You have handfuls of reasons to be concerned. And quite frankly, it's a little bit scary. It's always been a huge jump, a huge risk to get into agriculture because of the markets, the weather, the uncertainty. But if I was a young farmer looking at some of the stuff that you're up against right now, and you're wanting to get in, and that's your dream, well, there's a lot of farm kids sitting there going, wait a minute, how is this even going to work? So, due to the recent conversations I've had with some young farmers and hearing their concerns, and to start to round out my solo episodes about transition planning, I want to speak directly about the young farmers, what they're thinking and feeling and concerned about. So, why don't we start with number one? Uncertainty around ownership and decision making power. So maybe they're back on the farm and they've been back a couple years, 5 years, 10 years, and it will be stereotypical. The stats support that. If that doesn't match your family farm and mom's the main farmer and dad works off farm, that's okay. But for the most part, in the episodes, and based on statistics, I always work stereotypical, and it's easier than saying all the different variations. So let's say dad's farming, and you know dad loves having you on the farm. It's going well, but anytime you talk about trying to be an owner, well, dad goes the other direction. He doesn't want to talk about it. Something comes up. Oh, we'll talk about it later. Well, here is the hard part. And I remember being young. We didn't do this so much with our farm because we started our own. But I know so many farm kids, you're keen. You come home, you're working, you're proving yourself, you're hustling day in, day out, working on weekends, not taking holidays. You're proving yourself, but the conversation is being ignored. So a lot of farm kids nowadays, from what I hear, they're not willing to just work their life away with the promise that one day it's going to be theirs. And not that all farm kids expect to get everything for free, but just like a young kid in the workforce, when you go to a workforce in a good company, they try and help you plan out your career trajectory, right? So when you're a young farmer, and let's say you start to have a family and kids, and you just get to a point that you want skin in the game. You want control over your future. And here's the thing. On the flip side, it's a hard balance. And I understand because I'm kind of middle-aged. I understand the fears and concerns and desires of the older generation, and I get all of those of the younger generation. So on the flip side, you have dad going, my gosh, I just worked my whole life to build this. I'm finally paying down debt. I'm in my prime. There's been some good times. Farmers don't ever want to quit. So try getting somebody that loves what they do to talk about retirement. And if you look at a lot of farmers, I'm being stereotypical, the ones that I know, they farm. They don't go and play hockey in town. Some do, but not so much that generation. All the farmers I know, they farm. They love farming. That's what they do. That's what they want to do in their spare time on their holidays. So now you're asking somebody whose identity is wrapped up as a farm owner, and that's all they want to do. The younger generation's putting pressure to try and get skin in the game and ownership and walk into their prime of farming, of their farming career, depending on ages here. If you're 20, 30, or a little bit younger, but if you're 40 and 50 and 60 and still not getting traction and you can't get skin in the game and there's no conversation being had, that is absolutely frustrating, isn't it? So from both sides, we see farmers love what they do and they don't want to retire. What are they going to do after? And then the financial concerns, watch the other episode. But the young kids are like, I'm not going to work till I'm 60 to find out that this isn't going to be mine, or I can't buy it because it's being sold after dad retires, dad and mom. Right? So, will I actually own the farm one day, or am I just going to work on it? That's one of the biggest fears that young farmers have. And I say young, that could be anything from 20 to 50 in this industry, right? Farmers are living longer. Technology is so amazing that you don't need to be young and fit like you used to in the past to farm. There's so much automation, so much technology. You can be 80 and 90 in a combine, 80 or 90 in a tractor, 80 or 90 working cattle. Well, holy Dinah, that's a feat, but there's still a ton of technology to make it so much easier. Farmers are living longer, quality of life is better, technology is better. So now we have a double pull. Farmers are retiring later and later now. Younger farmers are saying, I seen how this game ends up. I know you don't mean ill, but this is not set up correctly. And I want to know that I'm going to own this one day. Again, not being entitled like so many of our guests say, but I want to take over this farm. How can I buy part of it? How do I get skin in the game? This is what I've been hearing from young farmers, from experts on our show. And the second one goes right into that. If there is talk about transition plan, it's not clear. It's okay, yeah, one day this will be yours. Nothing is written. And how many times have we heard those horror stories where something unfortunate, illness, death, family disputes happen, and the farming child has put 20 or 30 years of their life into the farm. Something happens, the farm needs to get sold, and there goes that farm child's whole livelihood. Everything is split up. Even assets that these people bought now get split up if there's not proper documentation. So no clear transition plan, and it's not written down. Number 3, financial viability and debt. As young farmers, can we afford to take this on? If you are just getting in and having to buy your family farm or buy your siblings out at the going market rate, does it make sense? Often it doesn't. And how many times does the same land need to be bought from the same family over and over, giving the banks a lot of interest, a lot of money, right? So I think a lot of farm kids are going, wow, 5,000, 10,000, 11,000, 20,000 an acre. Look at the price of machinery. Look at the price of cattle if you want to get in right now. Can I afford to take this on? Right? That's number 3 concern I'm hearing from the youth that want to be farmers but are concerned. Generational differences in vision. So if you're already back on the farm and you're farming with your parents, here's a thing that often causes conflict that is not discussed. There is a fundamental difference in the mindset, the generation, how each of the generations have grown up. My grandparents to my parents to us to the next generation coming up, we are all different. Where the generations before wanted to just work on the farm and never ever leave, and that's fine. The next generations are like, we want a bit more quality of life. We know that one. But here's another thing. Maggie Van Camp, one of the transition plan experts on her show, she shared this with me. She said, it is a proven fact that when people get into their 40s, even at 40, you're already starting to think about and feel about risk differently than in your 20s and 30s. Call it experience, call it whatever it is. So if you're looking at family farms and you have founder dad and mom, well, you know what? They've done a lot of ups and downs. They've invested. They've made mistakes. They're tired. They don't want to take on more debt. And then you have the next generation, young and eager, ignorant to maybe some of those hard knocks that you go through because you're just getting in. When you're young, you're ready to go and take on the world. You are more risk tolerant than the generation that's leaving. So what happens? That can cause a lot of friction. If you're younger and you realize you need to expand to support two families, but if the farm is in the hands of the farm founders and they're the key decision makers, well, it is almost natural that some of those individuals don't want to take on more debt. They are starting to peel back. They're starting to round down. They're starting to get risk adverse and they're not ramping up their career. So one of the big things you hear young farmers say is, I want to do this. I want to innovate, but my parents don't want to change how things are done. It's natural. And that's one of the push and pull when you have a lot of generations and a lot of generational differences working together on the same farm. Here's the big one. And I think the biggest elephant and probably the hardest part of transition planning, off-farm siblings and family dynamics. I've covered that a lot. I think that's what causes a lot of farm founders to freeze up. And I'm not going to give my opinion on this at all because I see all sides for the farming kid and the off-farm children and the farm founders. You want to be fair by all your children. But if you look at a lot of the episodes I've done, some of these experts are saying you cannot cut the pie four ways. If you think of it logically, a farming operation, give or take whatever your profits are, the good years, the bad years, the middle years, you cannot necessarily afford to take a farm that has a base of cattle or a base of land, equipment, and give ownership to four different siblings and expect it to work financially. Or you can't start selling off land, you can rent it, and there's lots of stuff. Check out the episodes, and that is the joy of working with a transition planning consultant or coach. But farm founders freeze up because they don't want to split the farm because they want the farm to continue on. They want the farm child to continue on, but how do you take care of the non-farming children? So guess what happens? They don't have the answer. They freeze up because honestly, who wants to cause conflict? Who wants to treat your children unequally? But then on the flip side, if we want the farm to continue on and all the assets are needed, how do we plan for this? Okay, so that is number 5. Young farmers are concerned about the non-farming children and fair and equal. It's a big conversation nowadays. Number 6, I mean, it's a concern. I think at this point, it's down the line. We're not talking to lawyers or accountants. What are the tax implications? If the parents will start the conversation, are they willing to talk to the professionals? We'll just touch on that because I think at this point, if you can get the ball moving, that's probably one of the concerns down the line. Access to land for first generation farmers. So if you're not inheriting farmland to continue on the farm, or if you are and it's down the line and you'd like to buy land to just get going on your own, oh my goodness. Access to land availability is number 1, and the borrowing cost, the cost of land and cash flowing that, but also having the equity, the down payments, the backing to go out and buy your first piece of land or first herd of cattle. It is hard for young farmers to get in nowadays. I'm preaching to the choir, but I think another reason I wanted to create this episode is there's a lot of these conversations going on in people's head. They're going, oh my gosh, my dream is to farm. That's all I want. I don't want to go work. But I'm concerned about all these things. And my future lies in the hands of farm founders that don't want to talk about it. My future lies in the hands of the markets, of trade wars, of tariffs, It's overwhelming. And while we have conversations on social media and back and forth and put out a tweet or an X venting about our frustrations about trying to get into farming, I don't see a lot of podcasts talking about it. So I really did want to talk about it in the context of transition planning. And we're looking at the future of farming. Young farmers want to get in, it's all they want to do. But there's so much that they're up against within the family farm and exterior within all the trade dynamics, right? Politics, policies, all the stuff going on right now. So I wanted to have this conversation because we talk about mental health. We talk about our hopes and our dreams. There are so many young farmers out there right now watching their farming dreams go down the drain day by day, month by month, year by year. Like we had that feeling when BSC hit and we said, well, there goes our farming dreams. Turns out markets correct, things stabilize, booms come, lows come again. Everything tends to correct itself. So if you're a young farmer, I wanted to share that with you, my experience of what happened. And let's trust that everything is going to stabilize again after these trade wars and tariffs and agreements are settled. This too shall pass. So don't give up hope. But we're looking at trying to keep and engage and bring back the next generation of farmers. Well, this is a pretty uphill battle if we want to keep family farms in business. Everything I'm talking about, these are huge hurdles. Okay. So access to land for first generation farmers. And I would even add access to cattle. Right now, cattle are at a high and amazing for the beef farmers. Yay. I'm not complaining. We're having some good years. If you're a young farmer and you want to get in right now, well, now's not the time to buy it. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a cow, bred cow, right? It gets pretty expensive. And if the market drops, that's kind of risky. So it's a tough time if you're trying to get into beef. Number 8, the last one I want to share, and it kind of wraps around all the transition planning conversations for the farm kid that wants to put skin in the game, that wants to continue the family farm legacy, the emotional tension and communication gaps. And so many young farmers will say, it's hard to even bring this up without a fight. And what a yucky feeling, right? Elaine always says, communication, clarity is kindness, I think is the way she words it. If we are a farm founder, you watching this, you might not have the answers on how to do this, but I'm going to share a resource shortly that you can look into and have the young farmers read. There's ways to help, experts, coaches, but more than anything, young farmers want to know the future is there. They want certainty. If they are in a stage where they're trying to build a family and have children, it's just like out in the working world. People are having kids later in life because they want to be financially stable. Harder and harder in this day and age, you hear of the same dynamics happening in farming. Well, we'll go back to the family farm and we'll rent a house in town, whatever the case is, build a house. And they want to naturally start having a family, but everything's unclear. And I think one of the fundamental human natures that we have as humans on this planet is for certainty in an uncertain world. But if you're going to go out and have children and start a family and bring more costs as a farm kid, a husband, a wife, You want a certain level of stability, of certainty. So for the farm founders out there, if you're not having conversations and you're keeping it all in here, you don't always have to have the answers right away. The transition planning doesn't happen tomorrow. Like, here's the keys. This is a process. 5, 10, 15, 20 years. As a farm founder, it's your farm. What do you want? Do you want to retire right away? Do you want a farm till you're 70? I think from the aspect of farm kids, we love working with the generations. We realize it's not our farm. We don't want to cause conflict, but there is a desire from the younger generation to know that there is a future there for them. And even more so, if it can be written and part ownership before you're 70 and retiring. Skin in the game keeps people excited and vested, the feeling of stability and security that we need as humans. So if you're a farm founder listening, don't feel that you got to do the plan and hand the keys over and you're going to be pushed out. If you're the next generation looking to take over, that shouldn't be the expectation either. If you look at the corporate world, you come in at lower level, you work up to supervisor, to management, and then if you're really eager and you want to proceed, you go into upper management, ownership if it's a business. Loosely use that context, but I think from what a lot of our guests say on the show, we need to realize that there's two tracks here. If we are serious about bringing the next generation in and keeping the family farm going, we need to communicate clearly, even if we don't have the answers. And I know communication's hard, and we want to appear that we got all the answers as the adult, as the parent, right? We do. So even just as simple as saying, we plan to transition this farm to you. Your siblings don't care about the farm. We want you to continue on, but we need to figure out what this looks like. But do know the intention is here for you to take over this farm. We may need to figure out the fair and equal, and we plan to do that. But know that you are being heard, right? It's really hard to talk to family about this, and especially when we don't have the answers. Why do you want to open that can of worms? Because the young farmer will be like, it's all mine. I'm taking over tomorrow. And then you're like, oh no, this has gotten out of hand, right? So just that clarity of communication, just right there. So many of our experts have said, and I've always said, just from seeing this happen around me, family, friends, community, transition planning doesn't need to be the skeleton in the closet that it has become. Just a simple conversation, which seems to be the hardest thing, could go leaps and bounds to saving the family farm. Because if we're keeping it in our head with good intentions and we don't verbalize it as a farm founder because we're scared to give too much hope or that the younger generation will push you off, you keeping it in your head or not being clear. Maybe you just want to sell it all and split it among 4 kids. That's totally up to you. But remembering being in the shoes of that young farmer that you were, we want certainty in our life. And I think with everything in the world up against us as farmers and big farms, corporate farms coming in, buying up the land, developments, we have so many things going against a family farm that we ourselves shouldn't be in. And having a hard conversation is a lot easier than losing the family farm because the young generation gets frustrated and goes to start their own career because there's no communication. And then what? nobody's there to take over the family farm, and then it's gone. That legacy of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations, however many it is, it's gone. Whereas a simple conversation, such as, this is our intention. We know there are things to work out. This isn't going to be quick. It is on our radar. We know you want to farm, but we have things to figure out. I also want to finish my farming career. And having an open conversation like that with the younger generation, I think would give that younger generation the, oh, okay, they're not trying to ruin my life. They're not trying to get me to not farm, because if we don't communicate, we can't read minds. And I think from everything I hear from all our guests, communication is the hardest part. So simply, this is our intention. We would love for you to continue the family farm. We don't know what that looks like. It's not going to happen today, but we want to see this happen. And then not drop it for 5 to 10 years, but talk about it and maybe make progress. Talk to an expert. There's so many young farmers that would absolutely die to continue on the family farm. They love it. It's in their blood. But again, without sounding like a broken record, the dynamics of family farming, the fears, the concerns, the lack of knowledge, the lack of vulnerability, the lack of answers on how to plan, we sometimes become our own worst enemy. And I know it's happened in family farms near and dear to me, where they wanted the next generation to continue on, but they didn't plan. The intention was there. It was said at one point. They didn't retire. They made no plan. And by the time that farmer was ready to retire, the one that wanted to take over the farm, heck, he was getting ready to retire from his career. Do we think they're going to go out at 50 and 60? Nothing against you. If you want to, hallelujah. But if we're not sending up the younger generation young, I don't know that there's that many people willing to work on a promise for 10, 20, 30, 40 years till they're 50 or 60. Unfortunately, it's so common now. But how can we prevent that? And if we truly do love that family farm and we don't want it sold off when we die, why don't we make sure that we set it up? Because in the situation I'm explaining, they didn't retire, they didn't communicate it. The farm child was 50, 60 by the time the farm founder passed away. They weren't taking over the family farm. It got sold, split up. And that farm that was so near and dear to farm founder got sold anyways. So are we being our own worst enemy? With the fact that it can be a simple conversation. And again, I'm thinking of it just, hey, farm daughter, farm son, this is my intention. I don't have the answers. We will figure it out, but making it known in clear communication. And the younger generation, you listening, learn about transition planning. I have a list that includes amazing books and resources and people to follow. It's in round 2 or 3 already, and I don't have all our guests listed because it's been a feat putting this together, but let's call this round 2 on the document. It has a handful of books, some PDFs, some people to follow, mainly Canadian people, but it is an amazing start. And if you go to farmmarketer.com, Impact Farming Show tab, right down to the bottom, free resources, enter your name and email address. We won't spam you. You'll get the ebook right away. And in there, there's books. If you are serious about taking the family farm over, read, learn. Don't push your parents, but maybe you're the one that's going to have to guide the process, because farm founders don't often think about reading books or generalizing, guys, generalizing. They're probably not thinking about it. It's your future. Why don't you research? Just like if you were in the workforce, you'd be taking courses and learning how to improve your game to advance in the company. Same thing here. We don't need to make it as corporate, but knowing some ideas, and if your parents are willing to talk about it, it's like, hey, mom and dad, here's what I read in this book. Maybe you want to read the book. Here's an idea. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm working on. Here's some thoughts. Here's a person we can talk to. So I want to try and bridge the gap between the generations, the farm founders, and then the young ones. I'm in that mid-age where I'm close enough to have been that, and I'm over here. And I get the fears and concerns about all of it. And there's so many brilliant people that have been doing transition planning, farm family coaches for so many years. They have great work. They're on our show. But I wanted to add to it and really have a conversation for the young farmers that are big, full of hopes and dreams about their farming future, that have nothing but growing fears and concerns about the ability to make that happen in their future. I really wanted to open that conversation up and share those fears and concerns, be the bridge between the founders and the younger generation. It's like, hey, farm founders, here's what they're thinking. Here, younger generation, here's what the farm founders are concerned about. And I think, and I hope over the last 3 episodes, all the links will be in the show page. I hope that I've done that, because everybody has our hopes and fears and concerns on the family farm operation. Farm founder mom has her goals and desires for retirement. Farm founder dad has his fears and concerns. The farm child has their fears and concerns. The farm in-law, whether it's wife or husband, have their fears and concerns. The non-farming children, brothers and sisters, have their hopes, fears, concerns. It's a big conversation. And when we wonder why farm families freeze up, well, go through these 3 episodes, listen to all the amazing guests on my show that share the hopes and dreams and fears and concerns, techniques and planning processes. This is big, it's scary, but it's not it's not a mountain that we can't conquer. There's so many amazing resources and people out there nowadays. And with some clear communication, we can make sure that our family farms survive onto the next generation, right? I hope you enjoyed this. This work is near and dear to my heart, and I'm happy to be having these episodes where I have the opportunity to share some of my thoughts, share some of the takeaways from all the episodes and amazing minds that have been on our show here at the Impact Farming. So the Impact Farming Show. So if you enjoyed this, like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the podcast, and I hope you follow along. I'm planning on bringing more great experts on transition planning, farm business management, mental health, the people and ideas that will impact your farming operation. So I wanted to thank you for spending the time with me here today. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on next week's episode. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.